So looking at when you're assessing Alliance software, let's talk about me for a moment.
It's going to be dangerous,
yeah. When you're,
be careful what you ask here.
What were some of your hesitations, and what made you take the leap of faith?
I suppose the first thing is like, what do you look for in a partner to your business? I suppose is the first question, because you could talk about all the technical stuff of the software, and I'm probably not particularly well placed to answer those questions. But the things that are important to me, and most professional services organisations don't get, is most people actually are trying to solve a business problem.
Yeah.
Whereas most vendors, whether it's an accounting firm, law firm, IT vendor, obviously orientate themselves around a specific technical domain.
Sure.
So I look for people who get business and hopefully get our business. The second thing is I like dealing with advisors who say, do this, don't do that, from a base of experience.
Yeah.
So law firms are famous for summarising a huge amount of analysis of the legislative frameworks and saying, here are the pros and cons. Yeah. Off you go. and that's not really valuable. People want to go see a lawyer, and the lawyer to say, hey, I've analysed this scenario. This is probably pretty high risk. This is the way to go. And then there's just the standard things you look for in any relationship, like integrity and trust, and is there a track record of that? And so I suppose if I play that forward, and the reason, part of the reason we went for Alliance was those soft factors. So Ben and his team not only came from a business perspective at our problems, they have some businesses they run themselves. So Ben was able to say, with Condensed Ceram Mirai, this is what we learnt and this is where we went wrong, and what I recommend is doing it this way. And we're like, it's kind of got a bit of credibility. The track record of being able to demonstrate credibility. I was fortunate that Ben was referred to me by one of my friends who runs a big software business, and he said, like, we've dealt with heaps of IT consulting houses over the years, and the thing that had really impressed him about Ben was that they were like, this is what we're going to do in this time frame, on this budget, and they did it. And that was our experience ultimately in the project. Then there was some final stuff. Obviously, your RFP was very promising. You guys clearly got what we were trying to achieve. Had done some deep analysis on how to achieve it. So the thoroughness actually of the planning, even prior to getting the work from us, really impressed us. Whereas some of the other vendors came and just said, "Let me show you some of the other stuff we've done, and aren't we wonderful?" But they really hadn't done the analysis on our particular project.
Yeah. Okay. And so, well, let's fast forward. We won the job. Tell us about the development process, and particularly one of the things that we've spoken about today is the amount of time the client needs to invest often in custom software development, and that can actually be bad news. It's going to take a piece of your time. And of all of our clients, I mean, Mel, we got to know Mel pretty well.
A little too well.
Yeah, it was something like 9 months and 4 days a week she was in our business. Tell us about the development process and what your experience was along the way, and maybe some lessons that might be shared for others.
I don't know, so I run a professional service business. I'm sure many of you guys do too. The thing that I learned in dealing with clients is that when something goes wrong, it's always your fault.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're justifiably so.
Yes.
But obviously, more often than not, I think it's because the client hasn't invested in the relationship. And what I mean by the relationship is not going out for coffee, but the classic thing for us as a law firm is the client would say, "I need to do this," and like one line email, and then one of our lawyers with the best of intentions will go and do what they interpret this is.
Yes.
And surprise, surprise, the client says, "No, that's not what I wanted."
Yeah.
And
sure.
And so I think the reason we had such a successful outcome was, probably 50-60% your team did a great job, but the other 40% is I had two of the best people I've ever worked with on this project, and so we resourced it and had almost on tap for your guys, really smart people who knew what they were doing and really accountable, and whereas the first time round I did not have that, and I did not have the calibre or the resourcing required really make sure that we were doing our part of the bargain.
Yeah, and I should speak to this because it's not true that every software project requires the extreme amount of input that they've had, but you're dealing in a legal space where the complexity was very, very high. And so there was as Andy said, there's two people that played a role. There was Jess, who would turn up sort of once a week and would do a project status update, and they'd have to demonstrate, and we'd had those regular check-ins, and she was sort of keeping a view at that level. But on the day-to-day, the domain itself was so sophisticated that what we ended up doing was literally putting the developer next to Mel, and Mel would do her normal job. Like she'd do stuff she wasn't spending 4 days a week on our tasks, but what we did is we shortcut the communication cycles. Like we really shortcut them. So what would happen is that Resmi, who did a lot of the work, would be working away, and he would make one of the cards red, he would block it, and he'd lean over to Mel and he'd go, "I just blocked a card. What can I?" And the conversation, we managed to streamline that really, really well. And you don't have to do that on every project, but it's become a model for us. The more we like clients to come in, clients can have desks. We've got spare room. Let's spend time together. Even if you do other parts of your job, no problems. We'd like to have you there as much as we can, so that particularly in the really that nutty bit where you're really working out the hard parts that are complex.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that we actually say to our clients is like when we're at our best, we are an extension of your desk.
Yeah.
So making that literally, I think, made a fair bit of difference there.
Okay, so talk to me about visibility through the process. How did you feel you were going in terms of, I mean, it's interesting because I'm not asking this question of Jess, the project manager, I'm actually asking it of the owner who's sitting separate from Jess. How did you feel in terms of visibility, knowing what was going on, feeling like you had a sense for the progress of the work? How did you feel about that?
I read a quote recently, which I think is a great one, which is, don't micromanage, metric manage.
Yeah.
And so I think the benefit of having a IT consultant / project manager who
in the space
is a CFO,
yes,
meant that we had metrics and stage gates on every section of the project.
Yeah.
And so when I think it may be only every couple of weeks, I'd hear stuff and then people asking questions, but only every couple of weeks I'd actually have a meeting, a project update meeting,
yeah, and
get this beautiful dashboard presented to me, and I had great clarity. And as the project go on, I used to at the outset of the project I would say to them, the guys, like I just had a son, I'd say, don't fuck this up. I want George to get a good education. But as it went through, it was amazing. I was like saying to them, if I didn't trust you guys so much, I think you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes, because literally every time we're just going through below budget on time, and I think it was because that rigorous approach.
And one of the things that I think actually happened, Jess, who's the project manager and is a good friend and is very sharp, comes from a world where she is very used to waterfall development. So she's used to a lot of, as we discussed earlier, a lot of planning up front and then appropriate execution all the way through. The challenge we faced was there were a whole bunch of details that changed. So if you look at the wireframes, you can see that it's the same project, but there's been a whole lot of evolution, and we were trying to manage a budget through that process. And so I think a big part of the reason was that Jess was, in my view, actually very pragmatic. She knew which elements of the system, and Mel knew which elements of the system really mattered, and a lot of that was interface elements and bits and pieces. But there were other bits of it where there were parts that we didn't deliver because by mutual consent we'd agreed to focus on a different thing, and so there was a reasonable amount of kind of camaraderie through the project, and I felt like after 2 or 3 months we got to a base of trust that we could do that, and we felt like we got some good outcomes in that.
Can I just add to that? I mean, I think one of the things that from my perspective really helped that is from the outset I said to you, Ben and I were negotiating over fixed versus time and materials, and I was like, I get why fixed doesn't work for you and why you got to put a big risk premium on, and you probably understand why time and materials is not a great outcome for me because the incentives are the other way around.
Yep.
So I said to Ben, the problem with a lot of software projects is scope creep, and scope creep's not your team's fault. Normally it's actually my team getting too excited about stuff. And so I want to make sure that we've got alignment here, and we can create a model that works for both of us. So we're both aligned that to deliver the best possible outcome at the best possible cost. And so we structured an agreement in that way. And I think from my perspective, I had faith in that Ben's team, and they demonstrated this time again, were aligned about delivering the best possible outcome and not going to get down rabbit holes and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could just do this, which wasn't really within the scope of the MVP or other elements of the project.
And so we ended up on a risk management, on a risk shared arrangement. So it was effectively hourly rate, but if things went pear-shaped, there was some penalties and other bits and pieces in there. So tell us about, we've gone through this development process. Tell us what are the results. Tell us what does the new system look like? What's been the commercial results? Give us the end of the story.
We had the previous software still kind of in market treading water, which was a little frightening, until about Christmas this year, and then we actually put to test the prototype. We had kind of like a front end with actually no automation. It was kind of smoke and mirrors for a little while there.
It was a concierge service.
Yeah, we called it a concierge service because you got a lot of legal time on that and we made no money. But anyway, we probably went live then. I think what's interesting is to put it in the context of the legal industry. So the legal industry has zero growth. It's about 2% of growth a year. The Net Promoter Score, which is a customer satisfaction metric, is about 12%.
That's bad. That's really, really bad.
Yeah. Although I said that to the General Counsel, the head of Legal for Energy Australia, and he said, "Oh no, we're in the negatives." It's probably only utilities and Telstra are the worse than that.
Yeah.
But so we went live. Since we've gone live, I think we've added about 60 new clients to the platform, so more than one a week. So we've been growing our revenue about 10 or 15% month on month. So if you think about it from a SaaS product, a good SaaS product probably adds a couple of $1,000s of MRR a month. We've been 4 or 5 times that. But the most interesting metrics for me, and like when we think about the stage gates of the project, it was like, will the concept work? Will we get through the technology risk? Will we be able to sell it? And you're still always wondering, like, it's obviously going to come down to renewal rates. What's your burn rate? It's a churn rate. Sorry.
Will people stick? Yeah.
Yeah, will people stick? And I think what's really transformative for the legal industry is we have a 92% net promoter score. So that means on average, almost everyone who uses the system says they'll refer it to a friend or peer. We have 100% renewal rate and still maintaining about a 10-15% month on month. From the that's the top line metrics, but then if you think about it from a business metrics, we now have one lawyer delivering about 9, providing quality assurance really on the output, but she delivers about $950,000 of revenue per annum because it's so technology enabled. To give you a benchmark, a good law firm's probably doing, for the same level lawyer, is probably doing about $180,000-200,000 of revenue. So across the board, like if you look at all those metrics, I believe it is the best legal service. It's very niche, obviously, but best legal service in Australia. And so the things that our clients are very excited about is what else can we do, as soon as they start using it. And so not only what else can we do in terms of other products, but a lot of the international clients. So if you think about our clients, this service are like L'Oreal, General Mills, PPG, the largest paint company in the world, Specsavers. They've all been at their global legal conference and said, you guys got to get onto this. And so I'm getting emails from the GCs of Europe and the North American stuff saying, can we now buy the service?
And so we're also excited about that because that conversation of what other products can you do can become a great conversation that we've certainly enjoyed having, and we've got other bits and pieces underway. So we've had a really good experience with Andy, and clearly you can tell he's a really shrewd business guy, but the process has gone very well both from a commercial output but also in terms of from that development output, and literally all of the techniques we talked about, Kanban, close engagement, all of those things. This is really a model project for us that each of those have come into play.